So thank you for those who stayed. It's going to be pretty straightforward. So I'm the CEO of NFT Paris. It's a big conference that's happening in February that's around NFTs, but there is also RWA Paris, Ordinals Paris, XYZ Paris, which is around AI, and Depin. So it's basically a very big Web3 event. And today, Zhen, so CEO from Web3 Auth, we're going to deep dive into a subject that's curating experiences for your community. So it's a very broad topic, and we're going to begin with, it's a topic I think you know well. So the first question will be, how easy it is to onboard people today in Web3?
So in particular, some context of where I'm coming from and information or my perspective from crypto. So I've been doing Web3 Auth for about 4 or 5 years now. What Web3 Auth is we're an embedded wallet as a service player. We're the largest one in the space, which does true MPC. We power about 20 million users a month across all of our about 5,000 different live applications out there today. Some of the largest applications include Universal Studios, Fox.com, and Mocha Brands. Mochaverse is also built on Web3 Auth. We've got Trust Wallet Chrome extension. Yeah, so the list really just keeps going on, in particular, big and small applications. And so when the number one reason why any application integrates Web3 Auth in the first place is because they want a better user experience. It's because they want to reduce the conversion cost for users coming on board. And I think what and because of that, we have a lot of these conversations with these different applications that talk to us and go like, hey Zhen, you see these applications, what do you think? How can we build a community and stuff like that? I think ultimately one of the main ways in which hey, Camilla, is it? No worries. It's fantastic. Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. It was getting a little bit lonely. So one of the main things people ask about is like, hey, how can we build our communities? How do you think about it? And I think the first thing I usually tell people or like I share with people is it goes back to really just 101 marketing, which is like kind of like the virality factor, or the virality factor of your application, or the virality factor of your community. Now, there's a formula to this. So basically, the virality factor is a series of things which you multiply together, which results in a number either greater than 1 or lower than 1. If your virality factor is greater than 1, then that means for every new user that comes into your platform, within a certain period of time, there will be more than 1 user joining the platform. So if it's 1.1, every new user that joins your platform once, 1.1 users will eventually join your platform again.
And do you know before launching this metric?
It's more of like a metric that you constantly monitor. So how you formulate, and then if it's below 1, all right, if every new user that joins after n period of time, you might have like 0.5 users, right, or 0.9 users. So like, so the way you like configure this metric, and it's a metric that you monitor over time, is you monitor, hey, like for every you use the awareness funnel. So for every new user that's aware of me, how many people download? And then you times that by the factor. For every user that's aware of me, what's the likelihood that they're interested in my offering and actually use that or engage with my community?
Okay.
And then after that is like, for every user that joins my community, how likely is it that they would refer and bring somebody else into my community?
Okay.
And you just multiply all of these, and if it's above 1, you're doing well. If it's below 1, well, you need to improve on whatever that one factor is.
And
right?
If we go less into metrics and just asking a very general question, maybe Camilla, you can answer first. I mean, we've seen in Web3 brands trying to create experiences for their community. We've seen Starbucks program being stopped and people talking about it, saying it's the end use case, look at it, Web3 is working. So apparently it's hard to create an experience for a Web3 community and it's hard to keep them engaged. So do you have, I don't know, examples of ways for brands to keep people engaged without spending a ton of money on them, without basically the program costing more than the value it's being given.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple pieces to that. And also with the 5 people in the room, if you guys want to join in any questions, this is better as a conversation. And so quickly by way of introduction, I'm Camilla. I am a current advisor and former founding team Serotonin, which is a Web3 native sort of advisory, go-to-market consultancy with the product studio. We've worked with over 100 founders in the crypto space to help bring their projects to market. And really understand what brand and marketing and community and all these things does and sort of the science behind them. And also from our incubated accelerator within Serotonin launched Mojito, which works with enterprise brands. We built the whole back end for Sotheby's and Mercedes and Pernod Ricard and a lot of these brands that are entering the space and trying to understand how to use this tech for community building. And so a couple things, and also what you were saying earlier, I think of community as like everyone in your funnel. Even from the earliest stage of awareness, all the way down to users, and then that last level of like they become advocates of your product and platform. And in a way, I would say, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the question of Web3 hasn't done a great job curating community experiences, because you can tell just by being here in Brussels for ETHCC that like crypto's really good at creating community experiences. It's one of the strongest tech communities of anyone, but that's not necessarily because of sort of a designed community experience or initiative. It kind of comes down to, and when we say community, it's almost been used so much in crypto in the last 4 years that it's been pounded into like a meaningless term. And if anything, kind of a negative term in a way that some people think of like, oh, community as in, you know, that's the group of people you can sell to. And I think that the reason why community means something different in crypto is, in addition to the traditional marketing funnel of users, advocates, fans, you also have investors. And because we work in a weird industry where you have private companies and platforms that trade like public equities with tokens, people can be token holders of your project, even if they're not users. Or they can be users and not token holders, or they can be any mix of the above. And community you can kind of create with like an airdrop and by paying users. But I think true community is really done through culture. And you can see that even through an event like ETHCC, and like the early core Ethereum community really came together on a shared identity. And so that's not new to crypto. That's just strong communities in general in the world have a shared identity around something. And the Ethereum community, at least in the early days and still, is an identity of being, you know, builders in it for the tech and the ecosystem that they're building out. They see the future in a very different way than exists today, and they want to build it. And that's an incredibly strong sense of community. And so when it comes to brands trying to enter this space, I think some have done a very good job so far, and some have not done a great job. And the advice that you would give to any brand, and any brand that we've worked with that does something in this space or targeting the crypto industry, is that stay consistent to your brand. Like, don't change at all what your core beliefs are, your culture, your messaging. Stay consistent in that. Don't come up with a new message for the Web3 industry that you're trying to target them, because that sort of inconsistency of brand, inconsistency of culture is not what builds a strong community.
Okay, and that's maybe what I want to ask, like, should brands continue to target the crypto community to onboard them? Or do you have examples also, Zhen, of companies who are targeting like their users? I know you've worked with chess.com, for example. Do brands now necessarily need to target? We're still in a phase of the market where they need to onboard Web3 users, or can they onboard their existing community, basically?
I mean, I would largely say that that's a brand-to-brand specific question, right? Ultimately, if you are a large brand and you already have your following and you already have people who love your values, love what you do, love the value that you bring, and love your brand just for it, there's no reason to really target a new segment unless that segment is going to bring you something in some way, in some form. So I would really echo Camilla's sentiments there quite strongly, especially for larger brands out there. In that there's not much efficiency to. I mean, unless you feel like the crypto community is something that you want to add to your community, I don't see, which is I largely don't see why. You would just stay consistent to your existing brand. But if you're a smaller brand, if you maybe are something which were like I don't know, like maybe like, agricultural brand in one particular country, or real estate, a large real estate player in just one specific country, and they're utilizing crypto as a way to spread awareness, to expand your base, to extend exposure, to get that. Then I think that's when you kind of start tailoring the message, right?
Okay. And go ahead.
Just to add to that, I mean, we can look at some case studies. I think that's changed. When big brands first got into the industry, they were definitely targeting crypto.
Yeah.
Because they thought, and you can take sort of Adidas, which we did not work on, but they're doing a fantastic job, and they're really in it for the long run and what they're building out. But when they first entered the space, and remember, it's only been like 3 years since brands have been here. When they first entered, it was sort of 2021, 2022. Markets were booming, like all-time highs. And brands thought, who is this internet nouveau riche population that's spending an average of like $10,000 a month per wallet on these digital JPEGs, and how do we get a piece of this? And so if you look at a lot of the early projects, they were essentially selling branded images into this crypto community. And in the beginning, crypto loved it because it sort of vindicated the industry. Brands were here, they were targeting us, and they did quite well. I mean, the Adidas drop, October 2021, peak of the market. You can diagnose their plan and their strategy into targeting crypto natives. Everything was on chain. You needed to have a crypto wallet. You needed to have Ethereum. They partnered with Punks Comics and G Money and Bored Apes in order to do it. Like, obviously our own internal brand association, and the mint was phenomenal. They made millions on that mint. And then brands later on, that kind of got old a little bit. Sort of grabbing from the honeypot of this new financialization became a little bit thin and transparent. And so the brands that are still here and the brands that are now building, they're asking themselves that same question: who is this for? Is this for our existing millions of global users, or is this for a new, younger, more internet native population? And I think their answer is ultimately, it has to be for their entire community. If they start to segment just for a specific niche, they lose a lot of, again, that brand value, that consistency with who they are and why people love them. And so brands that are still here and still building in the industry, they're kind of moving away from this like house party on chain where everyone was spending so much money on these JPEGs, and they're moving more into like a 5 to 10 year more like connected data strategy around all the things that the tech can bring you from consumer insights and connected data than just like a flash in the pan selling JPEGs to the crypto wealthy. And they're moving into larger initiatives.
Definitely. I have to be the boring guy in the room again, but like if they want a younger audience, they can also tap into Roblox, they can tap into Fortnite, and it's also easier to onboard maybe the young ones who are in their community already. So why ultimately should they choose Web3 to curate community experiences? Do they really need Web3?
So yeah, go ahead, please.
So I mean, from the tech perspective, I do think that I mean, you can cite a couple more negative examples there, right? Like, Marriott Bonvoy exists, or all of these hotel loyalty chains exist without crypto, and they are fantastic loyalty programs. They earn so much money. They're worth more than the hotel chain itself, some argue. And that's all done without crypto, right? So where does crypto come in, and where does it really add from a tech perspective? Where does it really add value? And I do think that it does have value. I think there are two components in which it does. I think it adds value in complex connectivity. So when you have like lots of different funnels, lots of different stakeholders, lots of different value propositions to be bringing to the end consumer, I do think crypto does have a informational theory like advantage and efficiency in doing so in that way. And then the second and third are transparency, like it being there and being out there, and immutability, right? So like, it's really irritating when your favorite loyalty program, of which you spent years like accumulating on something for, like changes their policy, right, to not benefit you as much. And it's at some points they need to do it to survive, or they need to do it for long-term progress. But when it's out there, immutable and transparent, that change is harder to do, and therefore I think that long-term value can potentially be higher to that end user.
Yeah, I would say too, it's not like brands are sitting around being like, how can we incorporate blockchain technology into our strategies? They think about it, how can we continue to, increase the total lifetime value of our consumers? How can we attract a new generation of consumers? How can we grow the business, create new product lines? And so, like, having it be on chain or something in and of itself, like, the users don't care and the brands don't care. It's all about the experiences it can unlock. And as we know, some of those experiences in crypto, like, we haven't really built up the stack yet to the application layer in a meaningful way. And so to sort of posit the way that I see it going, at least from the non-financialization version of crypto, is like, what is fundamentally, just to back it up, like, what does the blockchain allow you to do? It allows you to own a digital thing for the first time, like custody it in your possession only. And what we've mostly seen that be is currency and digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and speculate on them, and stable coins, which are over half of all blockchain transactions. So it's been very monetized, also because the parents of blockchain have mostly come from finance and tech. But when you think about what ownership means when you can own your data, and when it comes to brands, it's sort of, as you know, we have like third-party cookies, which follow you around the internet and make you feel kind of weird. You have first-party data cookies, which is what the brand owns on you, and that's why they remember what's in your shopping cart and your email address. And then building some of these customer loyalty, sort of like connected data identity. If your experience as a consumer to continue the Adidas example, if you buy something online or through a reseller or in store, right now that's fragmented on silos. But if it's a connected data strategy, all tied to your unique either wallet or token, they can see so much more about your consumer insights. But if you own that data, so they still first party have access to all of that. But if it's in your custody and you can take that with you, and for every other brand you interact with as a consumer, then you can create just incredible customized experiences for yourself. And not to be that person, but to introduce AI into it, you can, and I tried doing this actually as an experiment, to download all of my data sets that existed in all of the brand platforms that I had a big footprint. So the huge JSON file from like Meta and Facebook of all my Instagram and Facebook usage, my Spotify listening history, my British Airways travel flight data, my Apple Watch health data, Google Maps, email, location, like all of that. You can request a big file on everything they have on you. It takes them a couple weeks maybe to send it to you, and they're massive. And then if you put it together and connect it together, I decided not to for privacy reasons, but if you were to put it together in a customized agent on OpenAI or something, you can imagine how you can have that data set of yourself, which probably knows your interests better than you do, customize your online experience for you, give you recommendations, tell you what to wear to the upcoming wedding based on, there's so much customization that can come of it. And when it comes, so that basically consumer preference data, and right now there's not a technology for me to just connect that all myself. My own data doesn't really live in a file in my computer. I have to request it, I have to put it together. And so what blockchain allows you to do is have that connected data strategy where everything is in your possession. And then you can also choose who you share it with and who you don't. And that from a technology perspective, we're not quite there yet. We're building kind of everything on chain right now in like a nudist colony where everyone can see everything about everyone's transactions if you know their wallet address. But with zero knowledge proofs and other sort of verifiable credentials, we will live in a world where I can choose to show all my British Airways data to JetBlue to get them to target me as a power flyer, but not to another third party where I don't want them to have that data. And so it just flips the script when you actually get that data ownership of your own personal preferences, both for owning and designing customized AI agents in the future, and also just for having like a much more controlled user experience for your online presence.
So dwelling on what you said, just having this data that's out there that other companies can use, the topic is curating experiences for your community, but maybe there is a subject about curating experiences for other communities. So that's the big thing in Web3 is that you can target other brands out there who did projects and do something for them. Do you have both examples maybe of how brands entering Web3 used other communities to create an experience for them and enlarge their community?
I can start.
Go ahead first, yeah.
I think a perfect example is the Tiffany's CryptoPunk partnership. So first of all, brands are using data today to customize user experiences. Like that, they're really good at it. They're called third-party cookies, and they're so effective. They're cracking down on it with GDPR and new privacy policy across Europe, much more so than the United States. The US is going state by state. But the crypto version of it, which feels a lot better because there's consent involved. But Tiffany's targeted all the CryptoPunk holders and said that if you own a CryptoPunk, and only if, you can go to a Tiffany's website, connect your wallet that will prove that you have the CryptoPunk inside, and you can't like go past that gate unless you have a CryptoPunk. So if you don't, you can't enter. And if you do, you enter into a customized checkout experience where you can order a physical gemstone encrusted necklace version from Tiffany's of your own CryptoPunk. And that's a perfect example. They didn't need to reach out to any of the holders. They didn't need to send those people individual emails or some GDPR thing to access the private information of who those CryptoPunk holders were. They just said, tweeted out or sent out on a press release, if you own a CryptoPunk, come order a necklace that's specifically customized to you. And I think they did phenomenally well. They sold hundreds of them. People still wear them. Keep your eye out for it this week. I'm sure you might find some from CryptoPunk holders. And so that's an amazing example of specifically targeting a brand like Tiffany's, specifically targeting a community of token holders within the industry. And they're able to do that because it's all transparent on chain. And the CryptoPunk holders loved it because it was consensual. They opted into it rather than it having to be these sort of creepy thing following you around where you get served ads of something you looked at from a different email address, which are not unhelpful, but it just feels weird.
I have an example where, so Fox.com, what they did is, Fox.com is a house for multiple different brands, right? And it's not so much crypto brands and doing that, but they kind of combined different IPs that they had. So, WWE, Rick and Morty, The Masked Singer, all under kind of one identity in which was interoperable within their own brands and that people could bring within these different things. But I think the strongest evidence of a strong example of this just in the crypto community in itself is probably just the way that we handle airdrops and the way that we, like different communities, reach out via airdrops to other communities almost. Or like the vampire attack on Uniswap. That's an example as well as of just being able to reach somebody else's community and share that. Although that was a little bit more malicious, but it was still.
Yeah, we've been doing it brand to brand in crypto since the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I do think there are very strong use cases for this just being a function.
And on the user experience, maybe Zhen, I try to understand just I think one of your value proposition is multi-party computation. Can you explain what it is like we're 5 years old, really?
Yeah, sure. I mean, multi-party computation, account abstraction, and all of this stuff are really just tools to allow you to do multi-factor authentication on your own personal devices in a self-custodial way. All of these are just tech jargon under the hood, which just provides that functionality at the end of the day, but in a truly non-custodial and self-custodial manner.
Yeah.
And that's that. It's really just multi-factor authentication.
And it's
2FA.
And it's super, what you guys are building in that sense with MPC is super key, because as we all know, all 8 of us in the room, owning digital stuff is really hard. And if you yourself or you've ever told anybody else to go through that user flow of setting up a wallet, putting crypto into it, connecting it in your browser, and then signing every transaction. And then when you set it up, they're like, write down your private keys, but not on your iCloud, and write it down physically and keep them in different places, but don't lose it, but don't keep it online and never forget it, because you'll never get your crypto back. That no way is that what we're gonna do for massive billions of user adoption. It just needs to be better than that. And it's super sort of Wild West right now with how that user flow is set up. And so what multi-party computational wallets allow you to do is to get a wallet set up really easily, store your private keys on a device and sort of shard it in 3 different places. So there is sort of a fail-safe. If you forget those keys or you lose them, you can request for them to be put back together, but it's not like it exists in its full form anywhere else. So it's through encryption and through sort of sharding the key into different places, MPC has allowed sort of that fail-safe for users. So you can set up a wallet much more easily and recover anything much more easily. And I think it's a key building block in sort of getting hundreds of millions of users into the space to not have to go through that really clunky, sort of terrible user experience to set up
the
your
seed
encrypted
phrases.
wallet.
The seed phrases need to go. But I think at the end of the day, thanks for expanding on that. At the end of the day, MPC has also proven itself in enterprise use cases, right? It's what basically all the exchanges use under the hood to
And
secure
Ledger now.
their wallets. Ledger under the hood as well. It's what Fireblock sells to enterprise customers, to
Coinbase
VCs,
needs
to
smart
hold their
wallet
crypto.
too, yeah.
Yes, in particular. So I think what we really are just doing is democratizing it such that everybody in every application can really use it for themselves, with account abstraction on top as well, of course, because I think there's so many benefits to having digital identities composable on chain. Just combining the two such that we're democratizing it for everybody.
Okay, maybe last question and a tentative one. So the UX and UI in Web3 has been very hard, and so we've been improving it and trying to connect it to Web2. So now we have sign in with Google, pay with fiat. Is it the final kind of UX UI for Web3? Is it Web2 with Web3 under the hood, or are we awaiting for a breakthrough in Web3 native, really native solutions without existing backups?
So I think that when it comes to key management and when it comes to account management, we are kind of relatively there. But I think when it comes to the end user experience, there are still existing problems that impede and are obstacles to a really well-functioning application in Web3 today. And I think we are kind of like almost doing this to ourselves, not through our own intentions as a community, but just as a group. You know how Web2 is awfully fragmented? You've got so many different identities. With each new website you sign up, all of your passwords are all over the place, accounts. Last time it just used to be usernames and passwords. It took 20 years for passwordless to come out, and there's still usernames and passwords all over the place at this point. Web3, as much as we do want to improve on it, is turning out to be just as fragmented. We've got fragmentation when it comes to chains. We've got literally thousands of chains which exist, and everybody has to understand and interact with each chain before they interact with it. We've got like millions of tokens, like tons of different types of tokens, NFTs, standards. We've got tons of different wallets. Like I think everybody at least manages a minimum of 2 or 3 wallets. I think. And as you get more degen, it can go up to 10, 20, depending on the number of chains they interact with, right? And it's a mess. So we've got fragmentation, right? And I think the next step to really solving user experience is abstracting a lot of these, be it on the UI level, be it on chain. It's wallet aggregation, abstraction. It's chain abstraction and aggregation, as well as liquidity aggregation abstraction. You should be able to spend ETH, use Ethereum to buy like a Solana NFT with no problem, with just a click, right? That should be the end user experience that somebody experiences, feels, and is happy with. You shouldn't have to be concerned which chain your USDC is coming from. You should just be able to understand that it's trusted and that it's all right? You shouldn't need to hold just that little bit of OP token to interact with an OP stack, right? We should be able to pay with that in our USDT or USDC or whatsoever. And I think that might be the next barrier to kind of try to fix.
But what's preventing that? Like it's.
So I agree. It is the user experience is so laughably bad in our industry. Like even people that are crypto native, which I would put myself included in that, I still like get a little bit scared of sometimes signing transactions on chain, and like the whole having to have 0.02 base in order to, OP to make transactions on Optimism or Blast or whatever it is. Like it's so bad. Even the people in the industry barely can use it. And I think why is like, and I think about this sometimes, especially in our work in Serotonin, working with so many founders, it's basically been an industry built by back-end engineers. Because where the blockchain sits is very deep in the tech stack. Like you have literally hardware, your CPUs, GPUs, blockchain runs on top of that.
I think it's a lot of commercialization as well, though.
Well,
it's like, all of these different chains launch a chain because they get tokens so they can get money.
so that's a whole different part of it. But in a way, so you have like infrastructure, and then you have the platform layer, and then you have the application layer, the software layer, and then the application layer. So you have to work all the way up the stack to actually touch the user. And we've barely come up the stack. Like we're still kind of in infrastructure platform wars. And some of that doesn't help that the market over financializes them because all of it's basically like, it's the L1 wars and now the L2 wars, and no one really has to prove product market fit. So it's all just hypothetical. So they're all essentially meme coins because no one has users anyways. There's so much block space and like 0 users. And so as we finally, I think a little bit come up, and by the way, blockchain engineers, it's almost like mechanical engineers. It's almost like when we designed the engine and they were like, oh my God, we built an internal combustion engine. And everybody else is looking around being like, what does it do? And they're like, this is going to change everything. It's going to change the way people live and work and how cities are built. And it's going to change information. It's going to change everything. Laws, roads, totally, all of it. And they're like, cool. What is it? How do we work it? And they're like, because it's easier to see up the stack than it is to see down the stack. And so the people that built the internal combustion engine are like, you guys figure out the chassis and what color the leather is and what the dashboard looks like and where to put the steering wheel. Like we did the hard part. And that's a little bit sometimes almost a haughtiness that our industry has. It's like we did the hard part. We built out this incredible technology. Like you guys figure out what like the buttons look like when you're clicking stuff and like, what the front end looks like for the user experience. It's almost like a pride thing. I mean, I feel I know teams where the CTO doesn't even show up to the product front end meeting because they're like, this is so below me. You guys figure out the colors. And so it's a little bit of that, of just the industry, and not to say anything about them. I mean, it's brilliant. Our industry has some of the most brilliant technologists and founders I've ever worked with, but it is a little bit of that mindset of like, we built this world-changing technology. You guys figure out the details, but the details is literally how we onboard everybody else in the world. And so as we move up the stack, things like chain abstraction, the wallets will get more integrated into a shared identity. Like we haven't really solved on-chain identity yet. And so we still have some core building blocks of the infrastructure to fill out, but largely we just need, that's why the industry needs so many more like product designers, front-end designers, marketers, people that can understand what the user journey looks like and who to speak to, and how to design these things for actual real-world use cases. But I think, and honestly, it sounds pessimistic because in a lot of ways we've come so much farther than I thought we would have. But I think it'll take another 5 to 10 years before we're even at that place where we are talking about these sort of integrated experience, connected data strategies, customizable, data sets that you own, that you can design your own intents on chain. Like we're, I think, a ways away from that. But we'll get there.
I would largely agree. Like cloud has been out for 25 years and some people are still on-prem, right? It just takes a while.
I think that's a great end. I think we're nearing the end. Thank you so much, Zhen. Thank you, Camilla.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Alex.
enjoy ECC.
Thank you,
See
guys.
you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming.
guys. It was great. Any questions? Just wondering. Yeah, please go ahead.
First of all, amazing chat. Sorry there aren't more.
Hey.
So good. So you guys gave examples of like kind of large corporations and brands right now who are tapping into existing crypto natives and like doing really cool
Yeah.
stuff with them. I'm new to the space, but like what I find very exciting is the idea of using it, like kind of making it an entry point to crypto and doing cool activations and
Yeah.
stuff for people who aren't maybe that familiar. Do you see the next couple, year or two, do you see more larger companies just, again, seeing an opportunity in working with these existing communities, or they get creative and say, hey, we have, X amount of total customers right now, we can maybe capture 20, we can make it kind of an easier entry point and like use the Web3 technology to do fun activations for people who might not be that familiar with it. Like bring them in, basically.
So I think we're going to have a spectrum of brands do a spectrum of things. So like, for example, Starbucks pulled out. I know several different other enterprises which are like, okay, let's slow things down. Or I want to put my budget in AI, bro. that sort of thing. But you also have on the flip side, Sony just acquired an exchange. They announced that they're building their own chain. They've put a whole they've restructured the whole Web3 team to be exactly at headquarters in Japan, right? So I mean, you've got different brands just approaching this completely differently, and you can see that Sony is going to go full into it, full just distributing it to whoever they can distribute it to, and now's their time to act. But you see other brands like tiptoeing, just touching it a little bit. And we'll see a whole spectrum of them. And I think at the peak of 2021 is when we saw, wow, big brands are coming in. It's great, guys. Like, it's fantastic. We validated ourselves.
Stupid, no.
It did get very stupid, but I think we're also still waiting for that, like, kind of when that one brand manages to succeed in distributing it just to random people and gain efficiencies and just actually earn money in some form or way that nobody saw, like how MetaMask swaps just randomly started working, or like it will be another sign of validation, and that's where you'll see the next like crazy cycle.
And again, like, brands don't care about onboarding people to Web3. And nor should they, by the way. Like, that would be a weird incentive for them. They care about like surprising and delighting their customers, increasing revenue, increasing revenue through either increasing loyalty and total lifetime value of their existing consumers, lowering the cost of customer acquisition, and targeting a whole new generation of consumer. And so if they can, and they realize, by the way, that those younger consumers and the newer consumers care a lot about digital experiences and spend most of their work, play, communication, time, everything online. And so like they care a lot about that. And so they're looking at everything across the board, from like Roblox to gaming partnerships to how to incorporate blockchain technology for whatever it is, connected data strategy, increase loyalty and membership plans. Like, membership means something, but the way that it can be designed on a blockchain-based way is like so much cooler and so much more customized and personalized. And so they're looking into it there, but they're also only like 2 to 3 years into their education journey and at different levels of it. And some of them realize, like Nike, LVMH, Sony, some brands that have either hired or put a lot of time through understanding how on-chain, like all that works, they're like fully in for the next 5 to 10 year connected data strategy. And they see it overlapping quite well with AI. Because the AI internally that they can run to get better insights is only as good as the cleanliness of the data that they have. And so some of them are seeing, but not all companies are there. And like, we definitely haven't crossed the chasm. And so the brands that are there, I'd say, are like very much the early innovators. And they're the ones that can understand how this like invisible, scentless tech can actually create and unlock new experiences. And there's hundreds of brands that are kind of waiting in the wings to understand the case studies, to be like, does this affect their bottom line? Can they innovate and sell to Gen Z, Gen Alpha? Like, is it working for them? How are they using it? But we're still kind of early on that front.
Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
There is a word you said a lot, it's like fractionalized.
Fractionalized?
Yeah, like the fact that yes, the topic is creating experiences for communities, but experiences are fractionalized. The community are fractionalized. There's a lot of blockchain, a lot of way to get on board. And everything.
Fragmented, yeah.
And I totally agree with what you said, and actually I was moderating the first panel, and I actually took the same example as you did with Tiffany. Because Tiffany, what they did is like I said, like you said, sorry, is like they took a very particular niche of people, like social value, high end and everything, and they did luxury for them. So a brand understood their topic, and they did what they do in real life, in Web3, and they don't care about Web3. But
not too dissimilar of like, what was it, Gucci designing a Nintendo case, leather Nintendo case? Like, it's the same, like it's the kind of high-low partnership. Loewe doing all the digital outfits, like you see it in fashion, in the luxury increasingly.
And my question is like, do you think there is a way to get it more merged, like a way to onboard people to do like more bigger communities that okay, we have even like for blockchain, we have EVM on one hand, we have Solana on the other end, and we are talking about the fact that yeah, smart wallet is easier to connect with Web3 wallets and everything, but now everyone is like lost. You cannot use your USDC, you send USDC to Coinbase, they don't understand them if you don't understand channel. Do you think there is a way to
So I think there are several different ways, right? I think everybody sees this as you and I do, right? And so everybody's trying to solve the problem, or some people are trying to solve the problem. And I think there's several different approaches that some people are taking. Naturally, you've got startups like us, which are trying to build solutions and products to offer to customers that like connect things on certain different levels, and we deal with our own issues. There are also people trying to push standards, right? In particular, EIPs, ERCs, trying to get people like us as well, like startups and coalitions, to kind of like agree on like the way and the standard in which we should be doing things. And then last but not least, some things are just top-down thought leadership, right? It's like, you've got influencers in the space, you've got Vitalik posting blogs about how he envisions account abstraction should be and how he envisions these things. And so, I mean, I think people are trying to solve it, but I think it's also in a very messy way, right? And we all do what we can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's hard to express, like, again, how early we are. There's like 7% of all blockchain engineers are like arguably in Brussels right now. And so again, it will come. And like, as we were talking before about the user experience, like it needs to get so much better, but it is difficult to own and custody digital things today. Like the wallet setup, having segregated wallets, cross-chain, like no way is that the future. It's almost like we've taken that internal combustion engine and a few people have figured out how to like duct tape a stool to it and like hot start the engine themselves and are like drag racing against each other on chain while everyone's walking. And there's incredible opportunity at them from there financially. And then like, but we're still like 20 years away from having like a car with like driving laws and seatbelts and like driver's tests and all that stuff. And so I do think that like the user experience will feel Web 2. In fact, it'll feel so much better than our internet experience feels today, which when we actually think about it is like, it really sucks. It's so much time wasted of like logging in and your, as you were saying, like your email addresses and like having to bring data across different places. Why can't someone use their like eBay buyer rating to sell goods on Amazon? Like it's so stupid when you think about it. Why can't you bring your Twitter followers, own them and put them into another social app? Like it's so crazy what we can't do today. And so seamlessness wise, it'll feel way like from a front end user experience, just much more immediate than Web 2. Like I watch my nephews on YouTube and TikTok and they just intuitively get it. Like it'll feel like that. But the things that you can do and the things that it'll unlock from being able to bring your data and your assets like with you wherever you go online and like the new business models that can be built on top of that are just going to feel like infinitely better than it is today, with the needed security layer of that ownership and that customization and that provenance that's needed for like our very impending AI future.
I also think it'll go both ways in that I think it'll get better, but I also think that people will just understand it more.
Yeah.
Like, our kids grow up in the generation where, it already exists. People understand it. Everybody has heard about crypto at this point in some degree and form. Everybody roughly knows that it's hard to get in. Everybody, so it's like these things exist. And I think it'll hit a point in time in which just people, like maybe in government societies, demand that it's transparent. Yeah. Demand that something is on the blockchain because they need it to be transparent, be it taxes, be it whatever. It will hit some point that like it'll be commonplace that we want this, or it can be politically pushed. That it almost is politically pushed. Crypto is a politically pushed thing now. So but it will get even more powerful potentially.
And to leave you with a question that actually I think about all the time, I'm like, how good does the UX UI need to get, and how long will it take until it won't matter? Because it'll just be AIs speaking to each other. And when AIs decide to do commerce with each other and have like, buy goods and services on your behalf, like book a restaurant or whatever, like, do you think they're going to use the existing payment rails, or do you think they're going to use like a global settlement economic layer? Like, obviously. And so maybe there's a world where like we won't have to interact with the blockchain ourselves that much. We can just have like AI do it for us, and it doesn't really need to be like human readable. And so I think that that's sort of where we'll get to. I don't know how long that'll take versus how we probably need to put a little bit more thought into the UX in the meantime to sort of get there and onboard. But at a certain level, like maybe that'll just help extract a lot of it away as just the internet in general gets more user-friendly as you sort of slap a GUI and an AI front end on top of a lot of things.
Very good, and thank you, Camilla. And if you want to know more about AIX Web3, come to NFT Paris. We'll have a dedicated track. So that's the event. Enjoy ECC in the meantime.
Thank you,
Great.
Alex.
Thanks, guys.